Hello friends, today we are going to learn about routing in Magento 2. I have already created one route for this demo and this is my URL. This is the base URL of my Magento install, and then this is my front name, and I'm just performing a echo on my execute function in controller. So this is a very basic demo where we are hitting a URL and then our controller function is called, and under that we can perform our logic. But before going further, let me give you a basic idea what I have done till now in our Magento. We have created a route.xml file. This route.xml file resides in our frontend folder. So it's like earlier we had only this module.xml inside HC folder, and now I have a frontend as a subfolder and then the route.xml file. Inside this file I have this config tag, which is the basic tag that Magento uses, and under that we have a router, and the child node for router will be our route. So this is the section where we tell Magento that what will be coming in the address bar of the browser. Now I have the ID and I have the front name, so they are two different things, and most of the time people are confused between these two. Front name is the thing that Magento is going to read from a browser's address bar, and the ID is for internal purpose of Magento, where the overall XML is merged and the full XML is created. Now when Magento will see Litoway as a front name in module in address bar, then it will reverse track the ID of that particular router, and then it will find the module for that particular router ID, and further processing will be done accordingly. So again, this is something like in browser's address bar we will have this front name, and the ID will be tracked based on the front name, and based on the ID the module's name will be tracked. Now Magento has certain default behaviors for address bar in URL. Generally they are like this. We have the area, then we have controller or area, or I can say a front name, then we have the controller, and then we have the action. Some people call it this way, but I prefer to do it like area, then I think it should be the controller folder, then controller name. So we will go according to this. Now in my current route I only had keyed in the front name, that is Litoway, for this particular lecture, and if I key in Litoway index, then again I have the same output, because this is my front name, and this first index is the name of folder, and then the second one is the name of controller. If I go to my NetBeans, and let me show you, I have created a couple of files just to give you better understanding on this. Inside my index folder I have this index file, and I have a code index inside this. Now if I have to run this test file, then again I have to just change this index to test, and the test will be printed. And if I have to go to this dummy.php file, then I'll have to change the dummy word here, my bad, dummy and dummy. So this is how you can manage or create various subfolders and manage all your code. Now we have created two folders. Ideally what you are going to do is, first of all you will check for the area in which you are going to create your route.xml file, and based on the route.xml file, here we have the front name, and if we don't define anything in our browser's address bar, the index is the default that Magento accepts. So I haven't keyed in my controller folder and the controller name, then it will be automatically going to my index. And if I key in my folder name, let me call it the index folder, and then my controller name. in our controller file we have the execute function, that is the must in Magento, and Magento will automatically call this function, and we can write our code in here. Now to give you better understanding, first of all we will discuss areas in Magento. There are a couple of areas in Magento, and to get better understanding again on this, we'll go to module customer, which is Magento's default module for customer management. And here you can see that we have the HC folder, and inside this we have admin HTML, frontend, web API, REST, and SOAP. So there are the 4 areas. Apart from this, we can there is a cron area as well. Admin HTML is for the backend of Magento, frontend is again for the client side, web API, REST, and SOAP are also clear by their name, and then the cron tab will be used for the cron. So Magento uses Magento has couple of entry points in the code. So whenever your index.php file, preferably pub folders or public folders index.php file is called, and if a user is on the website's front end, then only this front end folders configurations are loaded. If someone is logged in into the admin section, then only admin HTML area is loaded. So this way the overall merged XML in Magento is reduced, and website's speed can be ensured. Otherwise, whenever a person is loading, let's say a REST API, a person is calling the REST API and we are loading all the XML for admin and the front end and the SOAP API, this is not a handy work to do. And simultaneously for cron tabs as well, they are only included in merged XML when cron is called on server. Now this was all about the areas. Magento has 5 areas, and wherever we are running our code, only that area's XML files are called. Next is front controller. So this is the design pattern that Magento uses, and I'm going to give you a basic idea about front controller's approach by here. If I hover over this, you can see that inside vendor we have Magento framework app, and inside the app folder we have this front controller.php file. Front controller.php or the front controller design pattern is actually used when you give the responsibility to render output only to one controller. So in Magento we have front controller, and all the inputs, all the responses will be returned by front controller only. Front controller will check that which area a customer is or end client is on, and based on that it will be loading all the XML, it will be checking the routes, and will be returning the required response. In front controller we are only concerned about this dispatch method, and dispatch is the function that is called by bootstrap function of Magento. Here we start the profiler, and inside that Magento iterates over maximum 100 times for understanding a particular URL, and once the URL is found, it's checked from the list of all URL. Here in $this route list we have list of all the URLs that are coming through using route.xml file, and inside that we call the match function, and match function checks that the current URL that is in the address bar of browser, it's matches with our route list, and if that matches, then it required response is triggered, otherwise it goes to no route or 404. Now again, match function is also really very important, and it resides inside the base.php file. Base.php file is in Magento's framework app router and base.php. Here in match function you can see that the request is passed, and then again match action function is called. Now there are two things that are done in this particular file. One is this match action path, and the second function is match action only. Where is my match action? Okay, let me go to match action path 1. Yeah, here we have this match action function. I don't know why my IDE was not searching this. So in match action function, we have the Magento tracks down the front name from the URL, and then it track down the module name which should be called. Then based on the module's name, it checks that what should be the action path. It also check what should be the action, and then based on these above information, it loads the appropriate controller file, and the final output is returned. So this was a high level overview how Magento's front controller is called. In front controller we have this dispatch function that is triggered, and this dispatch function uses the match function from this base class inside router, and the required uh, controller file is found and is called. Now again we go to this route.xml file. So whenever you're going to create a front end or back end route, you just have to create a route.xml file inside your namespace folder. We have front end, you can add admin HTML as per your requirement, and the code inside this is really very simple. I have kept it as easy as possible. Most of the time your route ID and front name are always the same, but you can change them, it doesn't affect. But on browser's URL you should be having this front name. Let me change this to something, let's say I call it P, and I call it with Q, and I remove all my cache, and if I hit this I should get 404. If I hit P here again, I should be getting 404. If I hit Q, then yes, as expected the front name is checked, and based on that I had my particular controller that is in place right now. Now in our controller we always use Magento's frameworks app action class. We always extend this class, and inside this we can use our execute function. You can create your constructor as well. You can use result factory and return the HTML output based upon your requirement, but for now we will be considering only calling a function in our controller, and rest we can discuss in further lectures. And now if we consider about the important classes that are called in this routing process, so we have this front controller and base. But whenever someone is going to ask you about responsibilities of front controller and how the overall process is working, you are not going to answer them with these classes. Instead you will be giving them the implementation from which these classes are being implemented. So these are the classes or the interfaces that has been created by Magento, which are further implemented in our front controller and base.php class. So that was all for our website's index file, or let's say calling a particular URL in Magento. And in further lecture we will be discussing other approaches, and we will continue build this module only, so that we can be on the same track here. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.